Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. As is our custom at this time, I'm going to ask Officer Ott if he would please come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Officer Ott is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If we'd all please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to put up with my little bit of a cold today. I'm going to try to get through this, but again, let me welcome you all to our December the 12th Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. For those of you that are here for the first time, let me give you a little insight on how we're going to conduct the meeting. The first thing we will concern ourselves with is the consent agenda. These are applications that not only this board has reviewed, but our professional and our engineering staff have reviewed. To our knowledge, there's no known opposition to any of these particular cases. So as we go forward, Mr. John Peterson, the head zoning administrator, will read these into the record. And as he does, the applicant, he or she will identify themselves by raising their hand when their time is called. Likewise, if there's anybody here in opposition, if they would raise their hand at that time and express their opposition, if we have opposition in these particular cases, we will pull that case and hear it in its regular numeric order. The next course of business is our regular agenda. Again, we'll go through the process with Mr. Peterson reading these into the record. The applicant, he or she, will identify themselves. Likewise, the opposition will identify themselves. Our officer of the day is Ms. Bates. Ms. Bates will call you folks forward. Anybody that's going to give testimony, you will come up forward. Ms. Bates will swear you in. All testimony will be given to the podium to my right. At that time, the applicant, he or she, will have a 10-minute period to make their presentation to this board, and likewise and collectively, those of you in opposition will have a 10-minute period to make your opposition known to this board. So if you have more than one person speaking, just be cognizant of the fact that you only have a 10-minute time period. With that said, I'm going to ask Mr. Peterson if he has any special announcements to make. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please put the volume on mute. If the phone rings, it does interfere with the broadcast of presentations. So if you have a cell phone, please put it on mute. Mr. Chairman of the Board, there is one case on today's printed agenda which has been continued by the staff and will not be heard today. That's variance case of V129 Hill Road LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the January 9th, 2019 variance hearing. So V129 will not be heard today. Also, Mr. Chairman of the Board, I did get a request from the applicant for variance case of V127 Duncan Land Investments LLC. The applicant does wish to withdraw this case without prejudice, Mr. Chairman of the Board, and it would need your vote.
Okay, 127, that is Judy's district. Ms. Williams.
I talked to Mr. Duncan last night, and there's a lot of issues, and he's aware of them, so he would like to withdraw, and I'm all for that. So I would make the motion that we withdraw it.
I'll second that.
I got a motion, I have a second. No other comments, call for the vote. Okay, with a 5-0 vote, we're going to allow Mr. Duncan to withdraw that application without prejudice. Okay, John, what else do we have to concern ourselves with?
Mr. Chairman, on your printed agenda, variance case of V120 Chastain Point LLC is on the consent agenda. It's my understanding that it needs to be moved down to regular agenda. Is that still correct?
That's correct. There's just a few questions that I have, and I think it would be better just to have a public hearing on it.
Okay, so when I read the consent agenda, I'm going to not read that into the record.
Just skip over 120. Okay, John, that's good.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
All right.
Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals variance hearing consent agenda for December 12th, 2018. Variance case V115 Donna Northington requests a variance to reduce the front setback from required 35 feet to 28 feet in land lot 697 of the 17th District. The property is located on the south side of Westwood Circle at the southern terminus of Anderson Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V115? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V116, Joseph Breitbach and Stephanie Breitbach request a variance to reduce the setback for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an approximately 960 square foot garage, required 100 feet to 30 feet, adjacent to the east property line, and to allow an accessory structure, an approximately 960 square foot garage, to be located in front of the principal building in land lot 153 of the 19th district. The property is accessed by a private drive from the west side of Poplar Springs Road, north of Pickens Road. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V116? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V117, Matt Round requests a variance to reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately 600 square foot rear carport, required 35 feet to 8 feet. Reduce the side setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately 260 square foot front carport, required 10 feet to 4 feet, adjacent to the north property line, and to allow an accessory structure and approximately 260 square foot front carport to be located to the side of the principal building in land lot 185 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Wood Creek Drive, south of Fox Creek Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments, sewer comments, and the Cobb County Water System to approve the final location of the carport. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V117? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
On V117, and talking to the Tim with the Water Sewer Department, it's my position that we need to hold this. We're working out an agreement with the Sewer Department, but we don't have it in writing, and we would feel more comfortable with the issues going on if we had it in writing. So I would like to make a motion that we continue this to the January meeting.
All right, I've got a motion, I've got a second to hold this case. Now, again, the reasoning, Ms. Williams, is that the applicant hasn't had an opportunity to talk to the water department.
No, he has talked to him, and we've all talked, but we haven't got it in writing
In
yet. We
writing
need
yet.
it in writing.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. I've got a motion, I've got a second. Call for the vote. To continue this case, V17, we're going to continue it, Madam Secretary, with a vote of 5-0. Thank you. Okay,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Williams. Now let's go to 118, John.
And could the applicant for that please hang around for a second and talk to Ms. Bates here at the front about getting a sticker for your sign? Thank you.
119.
Variance case V119, Philip Fender requests a variance to allow an accessory structures, existing approximately 578 square foot barn and existing approximately 900 square foot garage to be located to the front of the principal building. Reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 578 square foot barn from the required 40 feet to 35 feet adjacent to the front property line, and from required 10 feet to 9 feet adjacent to the northern property line, or northern side property line. To reduce the side setback for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an existing approximately 900 square foot garage, required 100 feet to 52 feet adjacent to the northern side property line, and allow parking and/or maneuvering on a non-hardened or treated surface, and that is an existing gravel driveway, in land lots 505 and 506 of the 19th district. The property is located on the east side of Old Lost Mountain Road, on the north and west sides of Gaden Road. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V119? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And take that one off. Variance case V121. Yes. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to hear the case, but we're going to move it down the agenda to the regular agenda so we can have a hearing on it. So we are going to hear that today. Thank you. Variance case V121, Habad Lubavitch of Cobb Incorporated request a variance to reduce the side setback from required 50 feet to 30 feet adjacent to the west property line in land lot 1116 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Lower Roswell Road, east of Fairfield Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments and fire department comments. The applicants are present. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of B121? Let the record show there's no one opposed. B122, Richard Haymore requests a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 30 feet to 10 feet in land lot 394 of the 16th District. The property is located on the southwest corner of Singing Post Lane and Nettle Lane. Staff recommends approval, subject to traffic comments and stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V122? Opposed? So we got two
Okay,
opposed?
I've got two people opposed. B122, we will pull
So
that
we'll pull that one off and hear
and
it.
hear that in its regular order as it comes up.
Okay.
Now, folks, don't leave the building until we take a vote. I notice some people have left when we call your case and there's no opposition. Do not leave. The vote hasn't been taken yet. You got to get the vote done before you sneak out of here. I've seen it happen before that things get a little hairy. So stay for the meeting. I'll tell you when to go. All right, John, where are we now? 123?
B123.
Okay, let's go to that.
SunTrust Bank requests a variance to reduce the amount of required parking, to increase the maximum allowable impervious surface limitations, and to increase the maximum allowable signage, and allow an accessory structure, which is a remote ATM facility, to be to the front of the principal buildings in land lots 1028 and 1029 of the 16th District. The property is located on the northwest corner of East Lake Parkway and Roswell Road. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V123? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V124, Johnny R. Mera requests a variance to reduce the minimum number of parking spaces from 20 parking spaces to 8 parking spaces in land lots 1163 and 1206 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Austell Powder Springs Road, south of Oak Street. Staff recommends approval, subject to traffic comments, additional parking to meet county standards, and a maximum of 14 children in the daycare. Is the applicant present? Is the applicant here for?
He's here, he's in the back.
Oh, okay, I see him now. Okay, thank you. Applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V124? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V125, Jacob Crosley and Joy Crosley request a variance to reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately 335 square foot playhouse, required 35 feet to 18 feet, in land lot 315 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Sherbrooke Court, north of Lake Somerset Drive. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V125? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V126, Duncan Land Investments LLC requests a variance to reduce the front setback from required 35 feet to 25 feet, with the difference to be added to the rear for the proposed lots 1 through 7 in land lot 207 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Hawkinstar Road, northwest of Wellington Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments, and rear setbacks to be 45 feet. Is the applicant present? I'll let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V126? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V128, Avi Moyle requests a variance to reduce the major side setback from required 25 feet to 19 feet, and to reduce the side setback from 10 feet to 9 feet adjacent to the east property line in land lot 758 of the 16th District. The property is located on the southeast corner of Bishop's Green Drive and Kenwick Court. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V128? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V130, Harold Brendan Dampier requests a variance to increase the size of an accessory structure, an existing expanded garage from 480 square feet per previous variance of E14 of 2015 to 650 square feet, and to allow an accessory structure with living area, which is the existing expanded garage, to be attached to the house with an open breezeway in land lot 119 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Battlefield Creek Drive, north of Dallas Highway. Staff recommends approval, subject to no dwelling or commercial use of the accessory structure. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V130? Let the record show there's no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman of the Board.
Okay, it is back to this board for discussions on all the cases. So I'm here to take comments. Any comments on any of the cases that we've heard? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve them or disapprove them, whatever your pleasure is. Brian?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve all the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, I've got a motion. I have a,
Oh, sorry. I second.
okay, second. I got a motion, second.
As revised, yeah.
As revised.
As revised.
As revised. We're good.
And I'll
Okay.
second.
And we've got a second of that. No other comments? Call for the vote. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to approve the consent agenda as revised, as was presented, with a 5-0 vote. Now you guys can leave. Thank you. Those of you that are on the consent agenda, your business is complete with us for today. We certainly appreciate your attendance. If you leave, please leave quietly. And if you're going to stay, stay quietly.
Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Okay, John, let's pick it up and let's start off with wherever you want. I guess 120, 118. 118.
Okay. Variance case V118, Michael L. Acree requests a variance to reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an approximately 2,400 square foot garage, required 100 feet to 26 feet adjacent to the south property line, and the 51 feet adjacent to the rear property line in land lot 111 of the 20th District. The property is located on the west side of Hill Forest Trail, south of Seville Drive. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V118?
All right, hold your hands up for a minute. Let me get a head count. Get 9 in opposition.
9. Let the record show there's 9 people here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Okay, anybody that's going to make a comment, come on forward. Applicant, you need to come up too. Anybody that's going to make a comment, now's the time to speak or forever hold your peace.
And this is Christmas time.
Wait a minute. Let me get them all up here. Anybody else going to speak? Let's get you all up here at one time. And you got a 10-minute period. All right, at this time, we will hear from the applicant first. Come right up here, sir. And I'll tell you what, before we get started, give me your name for the record, sir. Okay, and let her identify herself. Tell me who you are, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Sarah Acree.
Thank you. Okay, now you have a 10-minute period to tell us whatever you'd like to tell us about your application.
Okay, we want to have a garage workshop structure built in our backyard. As far back there, due to the natural slope of our property, it's best, I think, for us and for all of our neighbors also to have it as far back as possible.
Okay, now if you look at the screen,
If you look at this, yes, if you put it as far back, our land slopes down as you go towards the back of the property. So the building is placed as far back as possible will actually make it not visible from the street. It'll be below the roof line of our home. So
all right, let me try to help you. The young man back there, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Can you move your squiggly around and show us the back part of that property? Let's identify what he's talking about.
yeah, that area back in there.
That area right there, okay.
Right.
So go ahead, sir.
Okay, what we want to have done is not unusual for our neighborhood. I have photographs, documentation of 12 other structures in our neighborhood, exactly like ours. If you look up here, you'll see our neighbors on the bottom side. They have a large structure that's actually larger than what we want to build. And it looks like they actually have their building is actually right on the property lines. I'm not quite sure how they got setbacks of that. But they have their building built within the 50 feet, and then they have an awning off the back of it that places it almost right on the property line, which backs up to Corps of Engineer property. We want to have ours at the 25 and 50 foot, or 20, adding an extra foot, so 26 and 51 feet off the property lines. And there are numerous examples. I have,
Okay, do you have pictures you want to show us?
yeah,
If you would, just give it to this man right there. We'll put it up on a screen. We'll also give you a pointer and a microphone, and you can tell us what we're looking at. While he's doing
May
that, oh, I'm sorry. While he's doing that, can you move your screen up a little bit? Let's show the house below.
May I add, while I think some of the images are being put up, the particular home that we purchased, we did so about a year and a half ago. It's a relatively small home in the neighborhood. I can tell you that when I shared the photos with my colleagues at Kennestone Hospital, they kind of all chuckled at how homely the home was. Built in the early 80s, it's one of the smallest homes. Quite frankly, it's the runt house of the neighborhood, as my colleagues have pointed out. It's an older home. We're not really looking at expanding on terms of square footage for living space. We're comfortable with what we have, but we really need storage space. The garage is not quite a two-car garage. It's really a 1.5 size garage. We end up parking our vehicles on the outside. We have a wave runner, a boat. These are exposed. They're visible to the neighborhood, which I think would be to everyone's advantage, quite frankly, if they were not visible. They're also exposed to the elements, and they've had some damage last winter. We had a tree branch fall on one of the boats. So it really is sort of a very modest construction project that we want, which is really just to increase storage space for vehicles. And quite frankly, given the quality of the neighborhood and the homes and structures around us, this is really more of an upgrade to be in conformance, quite frankly, with the standards of our lovely neighborhood.
okay.
Now, you want to
All
show
right.
us what we're looking
Okay,
at?
yeah, so if we're looking right here, these are a couple of the buildings that are our neighbors. This is one large, big red barn right here. And
Is that your neighbor's barn? I'm not following you.
this
that
is in our neighborhood. This is one of the buildings,
But
one of the outbuildings.
this is not your barn, it's your neighbor's barn you're showing us. Is that
Yes,
correct?
this is someone else in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay, so they have a large red barn, large outbuilding structure right here. And then over here, so there's two on this one photo, actually. So they also have a large unattached building here.
Okay.
And they are, if I recall, I believe those are within, at the about 25, 50-foot setbacks, like some of the other ones. Here's another big barn structure. And these are visible from the street. These are just photographs that are from the street. Our building, again, is not going to be even visible from the street. That's the goal. Okay, here is another one. This is a large unattached garage building back there. And again, very close, right on the property line. I'm not sure if that's even within or outside of the, that's at probably the 25-foot setback. And those are over the 650 square foot size that would require 100 foot without a variance request or being attached. Here's, this is another large garage structure that's in our neighborhood. This one is attached via breezeway, so I believe that actually makes it, they don't need a variance request if it's got a breezeway attached. But it is just an example of another large structure. Okay, so those are some street views. And then let's skip. Okay, so here's one. This is This is an example, one of our neighbors has 2 large outbuildings in the back. And these are not visible from the street, so I can't do a street view for this one. But it's a large building, and this is about a 3,000 square foot building here, and then about another 1,300 square foot building back here. You know, again, close to the property line, not even close to 100 feet, and not attached to the house.
And this house is in your neighborhood?
Yeah, these are all.
Yes.
in
We've
fact,
collected
here.
12 examples which are in the binder. We are happy to leave that binder with you to give you the opportunity to look at things at your leisure.
Okay.
There are numerous examples that we could spend quite a bit of time looking at in detail.
Okay, here, we are 3469 right here. These are 4, just within a few houses of us. We have, in fact, our neighbors on either side both have large buildings on their property. These properties down here both have outbuildings. And these are more properties, I think there's 12, I have 12 total, that are all within, you know, a half mile, quarter to half mile of our house. They're all on our street. That all have large oversized buildings, some attached, some unattached. So what we're asking for is not really unusual for our neighborhood. There are many examples within our neighborhood, within a few, you know, sometimes within a few houses of ours.
Okay, you've got 2.5 minutes left. Tell us what the purpose of the buildings are going to be used for.
Okay, it's a storage, you know, storage, it's a garage / workshop. They will, you know, we have a couple of boats, Wave Runner, we have an extra vehicle, you know, my wife and I both drive, and we have an extra car, so we have 3 vehicles. We're only able to put 1 indoors at the time, or, you know, at a time. So, and to get those, to protect the, you know, some of this equipment from the elements, like right now during the winter with the freezes and the rain and all that, to protect them from the elements, to get them indoors, and also get them out of our driveway, so that it doesn't clutter up and make a mess, you know, an ugly sight for all our neighbors to have to drive by and see all the time.
And for the purpose of the record, the buildings are not going to be used for any business purposes, is that correct?
No, absolutely not, no.
And no living purpose?
Right, no, it's not a living structure.
Yeah.
All right, you got 1.5 minutes. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Well, I think a picture, you know, I'm a pathologist by training. I work really hard at Kennestone, seeing 100 cases a day of cancer, and I can tell you a picture speaks 1,000 words. It's what I do every day, teaching at our tumor boards. I think a picture speaks 1,000 words. I think looking at this comparison, it tells you a lot. We have a very modest home, and what we're doing is a very reasonable upgrade for the neighborhood standards. Again, it's nothing unusual. I would argue once again that it's an upgrade that sort of brings our property a bit to conformance with the neighborhood and helps to eventually actually increase the value not just of our property but of the adjacent properties.
Yes, this will increase the value of our property, which will then increase the value of our surrounding properties too. So.
It's simple. It's additional parking structure for a 1981 home with a 1.5 size car garage.
Very well, you did it in your time period.
Okay.
If
Thank
you
We
would,
appreciate
please,
your time.
please have a seat, and
Thank you.
we'll listen to the opposition at this time.
Would you like us to leave the binder
No,
with
no,
the
at this
images?
point, just go ahead and have a seat, and we'll come back to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition, we'll start with whoever wants to come forward.
A good bit of the information.
Wait a minute, first of all, give me your name, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Eugenia Trammell. I live at 3499 Hill Forest Trail. My property backs up to the applicant's property,
And looking at this, show us where your property, is this your property just below?
just behind, yes.
Oh, right there, that's your
Yes, sir.
property?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
go ahead, ma'am.
And what this picture, I don't think displays is that they have completely clear-cut that lot all the way back to the property line, it appears to me, so there's no 100-foot buffer left for the R80 zoning.
Good.
There's also not enough buffer on the side for their neighbors. Of the photos that he just shared with you, 2 of them are in our neighborhood, Hill Forest Estates. The rest are on Hill Road, which is another road that leads into our neighborhood, but it's not part of the original development. The original development was my father's, Harry Ingram. He sat at that desk quite a few years. So when Daddy put it in, he put underground utilities and he did R80. Unfortunately, the house that they purchased was one of the smaller houses in the neighborhood. In fact, Daddy financed them and the people never paid him back. So he was out 90 grand at his death. And asked me to go collect. I said, no way. But the things that bothered me is if we have R80, we have it to have a structure on a 2-acre or less lot, I believe. And I think they need to stick with that, number one. Number two, they need to replant what they've taken off the borders in the zoning. I have drainage now onto my property that follows through to my neighbor's property, Donna, back there, which is an issue. It needs to be addressed. I think they should have come and talked to us first and tried to work things out before they got so busy with this. The next picture I'll show you is a picture of their clear-cut yard now. That's from the street. It goes straight down to my property, so you can imagine the drainage I have now.
So I'm looking at their house, is that what?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir, you are.
okay,
And it is probably the smallest house in the neighborhood.
okay.
One of the houses that they showed you with the other buildings outside was my father's house. His was the first one, and it was 7 acres, not the 2 acres. So that's why he has the other outside structures.
All right, you're down to 7 minutes, so. you need-
Okay, and I have others that need to
Yes,
speak.
ma'am.
Okay, those are my main concerns, I think.
Okay,
Up
thank you.
there.
Next person, please.
I'm John Gibson. I represent.
Come on up, get up to the microphone, John. And the next person needs to start Miranda and on up if they're going to speak.
I'm
Yes,
John
sir.
Gibson. I represent the Gowans, who are the next door neighbors to the south. I want to show you a couple of photos, a bird's eye view, so to speak, of that lot as it now looks. It doesn't look like what they showed you a few minutes ago. They have clear cut it both front and back. I don't know if anticipation of this particular use or not, but it is that. I also can show you an example, but he's shown you examples of other people that have outbuildings, and those outbuildings all are complementary to the main structure, the architecturally complementary. If you look in the attachment to his application, it looks like it's corrugated metal or something. It certainly doesn't look like his house looks with the stucco. And so it is not architecturally complementary. So my clients oppose it for several reasons. One, first of all, R80, where they live and he lives, is the most restrictive residential classification of all. And you're supposed to give 100 feet, and yet they want to build it within 25. They have other location on their lot where they could build it further away from the property line. There seems no reason why he should have to build it what I would call an uncomplimentary building so close to my neighbor, to my clients, who are his next door neighbors. But he's chosen to do so in his plans. In addition, this design simply does not seem to have a real use. It looks more like a horse barn that my client took a picture of a similar barn. This is a pole barn is what they call this thing. But this is a picture of a similar structure that was taken in another location a long way off because they had to go out where there were horse farms. Looks just like what this person is recommending. That does not look like his house. That is not complementary architecturally. My clients are next door neighbors. These other people who object here today all feel like their property values are going to go down, not up, if he tries to build this structure. If he's going to build it, he needs to comply with what the law says, and if he can't comply, he ought to come up with something that's a little more complementary to the neighborhood.
We're right at 4 minutes, sir. Anything else you want to tell us?
I'm going to let the others go.
Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
I'm Terry Goen, I'm the one just on the right side.
If you would, at the mic, now tell us who you are.
Okay, I'm Terry Goen, I'm the one just on the right side of him as we're looking out at the bottom half there. What we're looking for is we just want our privacy. We want the trees, we don't want to have to look at a mess, okay? And we want it to be complementary to the whole neighborhood. The barn that he's proposing to put, that's not what we have. That's not what the other people has he's showing. Some of the other houses are a lot larger lots that are on Hill Road, not Hill Forest Trail. And that's all we're wanting, is something that's gonna complement the neighborhood and go along with architectural. That's the bottom line of it, and there's trees, you know, not clear cut. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak? We got 3 minutes left. Let's get it all out. Your name, please, ma'am.
I'm Sandra Goen,
Going,
Goen,
okay.
and we're the neighbors to the right of his house. And I just wanted to say, he admits that this building is not going to be attractive from the street, which is why he's putting it way in the back. We will have a tremendous view of this building.
Show us your property from that picture. That's the one just
It's-
below it.
It's right there.
You got to remember, I've got a TV audience, and I've got an audience here, and I've got an audience here. So I make these comments not for myself, but to explain to everybody exactly what we're doing. So,
In
Dan,
fact,
go ahead.
I can bring up pictures to show what the
Right.
back, what the view is from our deck.
Sure.
Before and after, to give you an idea.
No, I don't need pictures. Just go ahead. We understand the
But
clear
that's,
cutting.
that's just what I wanted to say, is that the view, I mean, he's admitting that the structure's not gonna be, look nice, and that's why he's trying to hide it from the street with the low roof line.
Right.
And those are his words. Thank you.
Okay, I've got 2 more minutes left. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody that spoke want to come back up? You got 2 minutes. I want to make sure I'm fair to everybody. Okay, hearing and not seeing anybody come up for opposition. Are you going to speak, ma'am, or not? I want you to get sworn in. We'll swear you in. Come on. I got 2 minutes. I want to make sure everybody gets on the record. Okay, give me your name. You got 1.5 minutes.
I'm Donna Dye. I live at 3509 Hill Forest Trail. I immediately back up and beside Gina Trammell, who spoke first. If you're looking at the picture, the back yellow line, thank you. That's Gina's lot right there. This is the narrowest part of our 2 acres. Immediately to the left is my lot.
Okay.
So they are proposing to put this barn closer to my yard. And since they've clear cut, I now have mud drainage in my yard. So you're talking about going through one lot to a second lot of mud drainage. When we bought this house 1.5 years ago, it's heavily wooded. The whole area is very forested. We love that privacy and being out with the woods. We back up the Corps of Engineer property. It's so peaceful. Now I see the lights. They have this big glowing light. I don't know if it's a grow light, what it is, but I can see it from inside my house now, where before I had not. So I'm assuming if they build this huge barn or garage even closer to my house, I'm going to get the privilege of seeing all that light all the time. So I'm opposed. I do not want this structure closer to my home.
Okay.
Thank you.
30 seconds. You want to say anything else?
We don't want this close to our edge of a property. We would like to keep the original R80. It was put there for a reason. Those boundaries, we'd like to keep them.
Thank you. Okay, I declare the public session over with. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Skip Gunther, who represents the district, to lead us in the discussion. Mr. Gunther.
Yeah, I'd like to do a couple things. I have 2 pictures here that I'm going to pass over to put up on the screen. I believe these were part of the application, but they didn't make it into our book that we have as the Board of Members on, as the Board of Zoning Appeals. But they were sent around, I believe, to the neighbors. These, as I understand it, are 2 pictures of what the structure would look like. And Mr. Ackery, I wonder if you could just raise your hand and say, yes, they are.
That's close to what it
Well, if you could come up then, if you're going to say something, then I'd like to have you come up and
Any-
just tell us so that we can have it on
We-
TV.
Got to have it on the record, so we've got to have you right up here.
So if you could just spend just 30 seconds and just explain what it is you would build and how these relate to that.
That's close to what we're going to have built. That's not a final design. The number of windows and the number of doors and placement are not finalized, but that's basically what it's going to be. And it's going to be a wood-sided building and painted complementary colors. It's not-
So,
And you know, I'm sorry if you think I said it was going to be unattractive. It's by no means do we plan on building an unattractive building on our property that we have to look at ourselves.
okay, that's all I wanted to do is establish, just for the board, roughly what it is you're planning to build there. So that-
Right,
Because they
yes.
Metal
they
was
hadn't
nev-
seen these
right.
pictures.
Okay, so for clarification, in response to comments that were made earlier, it was never intended to be metal, and neither do we want bright red, even though bright red barns do exist in our neighborhood. No,
Yeah,
it would
we
be-
drive by two big bright red barn buildings in our neighborhood on the way back to our house.
Okay, fine.
Well,
That's,
what we did want to avoid are constructions that we've seen where the primary home is small, and there's clearly been an upgrade in the back that is much more massive than the original house. That, in my opinion, looks quite frankly ridiculous, and that's unattractive. So keeping the roof line lower and keeping it more modest looking, you know, is in our plan, but we never finalized any details, and I think some of that has been
Okay.
lost in translation.
well, while you're here, I do have one more question.
Yes, sir.
You obviously have clear-cut the property. When I look at the west edge, the back side of your property, the western side that borders on your neighbor's property, Gina's property,
Yes.
I don't have the number there, but
Yeah, and there.
3499.
Yeah, and there's 2 rows of silt fencing back there now, the inspector that came out.
Okay, but here's my question. My question is, I understand there is an equestrian easement along that border. Is your clear cutting, cut down the trees on that easement? That's my question.
Not that no. No, we stayed off the property line,
Well, the easement goes on into your property, according to your drawing that you've submitted as part of the application.
okay, no, we left a buffer of trees along that west property line.
Okay, but you recognize there is an equestrian path?
I knew there was an easement there. I'm not sure, I didn't know it was an equestrian easement, but I knew
Yeah.
there was an easement.
Okay, it is. Okay, that's all I have for you.
But before they leave, I've got to open it up. Does anybody else have questions for, yes,
Well, I
ma'am?
have more questions, but.
Well-
Oh, okay.
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 Yeah, I basically wanted to know if you knew the square footage what's the square footage of the primary residence?
It's 2,500 or 2,600 square feet. Our house, about 2,600 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, you
Okay,
have
and
a question?
if I could add.
No, sir, you can't add anything.
Oh, okay, all right.
We have to take questions. Ms. Williams going to ask a question now.
I'm not to ask a question. John, were they required to get a grading permit to do that much grading?
For R80, there is no required buffer, so they would not be required by zoning to get a clearing permit. You know, depending on if they've caused problems with the drainage, they may have to go back and fix that somehow, and they'll need to go see stormwater management.
Because it clearly looks like it has caused a problem of taking, and so then I come back to y'all, why did you cut down so much of the trees?
Because we're going to landscape the backyard at the same time. We're, you know, the building and then the concrete pads around it require, you know, the trees to be cleared. And then the trees that are there are, I don't know, 80 to 100 feet tall pine trees. They're not pretty to look at. The further they are back, you know, they're good from a distance, but up close to our house, we had, during the winter storm last year, there were numerous branches from these massive trees all around our house that came very close to falling on our house itself. And we did have some damage to one of our boats from a tree that actually fell on the boat. So we're trying to clear those back for a safety buffer from the house and from our,
Well, it
where
looks
we
like
actually
you cleared
park.
it back for a buffer, I mean, it looks like you cleared the whole thing in the back.
Well, we widened out the front, so there's sort of an hourglass shape in the front of the property now. And then we're going to have that landscaped, and that'll have to wait till spring now with the weather the way it is. You know, we're gonna have to
Well,
wait till spring.
you're building a
And the-
structure, effectively, the structure that you're proposing is gonna be about the same size as your house.
It'll be a little bit smaller, yes. But it's a garage, it's a workshop slash garage.
Why do you need
so,
2,400 square feet?
Well, when we're looking at possibly getting an RV in the future, and that's why, we don't have the.
Well,
this
I
building
mean,
up.
the garage we have now is really it's a big one-car garage. I
Yeah,
think
it's a
a lot of
one-car
homes in the
garage.
neighborhood have 4-car garages.
But
There's
I'm not
even-
talking about your neighborhood, I'm just talking about you.
Yeah.
Why the
Well-
24, what is it gonna house?
It's
And
gonna
it-
have the
Oh, to
boat.
be
It's
able to have
just
additional-
our spare vehicle, RV, boat, wave runner, and then also have room to work on those things while we're in
Okay,
there.
so you're gonna have a garage area in there too for working? and-
Correct, yes.
And
It's
and you're gonna have a
primarily
workshop?
garage.
in
Yeah,
there?
it's gonna be a workshop and garage.
All right, thank you.
Okay, if you just stay right there.
Any
I'm
other,
gonna take it
Brian,
back.
do you have any questions at all?
Kind of following up, I'm sorry, following up on Judy's question, just about the size of the structure. So if there's an RV, I guess what I'm kind of curious to know is, does it need to be quite so big? And I guess with the landscaping plans, you will do some kind of natural buffer maybe that'll,
Oh, absolutely, that's what I
That's-
wanted to add, yes. On our south property line, between our property and the Gowans property, we do plan on planting trees. And they've already taken the initiative to plant trees on there themselves. So they've already spent, I don't know how much time and money planting a large row of what do you call those trees that you planted?
Or we
The
can't.
green giants,
You
yeah.
gotta-
So
you
they're
just
already
gotta
planting a
talk to
buffer
us.
on their side. And we're gonna plant
Which they are
trees
very-
on our side
very
too.
Beautiful, and we're grateful for that. But, I think one thing to keep in mind is that when you're starting a project, you kind of have to start somewhere. You have to start with flat space. You have to start with something you can landscape it as you go along and as you finish. For example, we would not invest in landscaping the front, knowing we're going to have trucks needing to get to the back and so forth for
Yeah.
construction. You would do that at the end. So, yes, we
Okay,
did.
let's just answer the question. Does that answer your
yeah, it
question?
does, thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Just-
I'm gonna just make a couple comments and a couple questions. First off, I'm convinced after talking to you last week that you're surprised by the kind of the buzzsaw reaction that you got from your neighborhood regarding this, it seems to me. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Normally what we do is for an application such as this that is outside the code, we frequently on this board ask the applicant to ask all of his or her neighbors to tell them what they plan to do and to get them to sign a petition saying that they support it, if in fact they do support it. And if all the immediately contiguous neighbors support it, and if there's no other opposition, we generally, even though the hardship may be hard to determine exactly what it is, and every variance requires a hardship, even though that may be difficult to determine, if all of the contiguous neighbors are supportive of what you want to do, and if there's nobody else who lives nearby, there are some people who live far away who like to complain about, a lot of things. But if those conditions are satisfied, then frequently we grant the variance. That's obviously not the case today. When I look and see what the hardship is, well, the size of your lot is a hardship with respect to the size of the building that you want to build. The code for R80 says you need to have a 100-foot rear setback and a 100-foot side setback. I can't tell that your property is much more than maybe 200 feet wide, so you don't have much room to build much of anything 100 feet away from the edges of your property. As you go down in size of accessory structure, the requirements change. And John, could you just refresh our memories for the record what those requirements are for different size accessory structures?
Yes, sir. For an accessory structure from 0 to 144 square feet, the setback is 5 feet from the rear or side property line. For an accessory structure between 144 to 650, the setback are the setbacks for the lot. So in this one, it would be a 25-foot side setback and I believe a 50 or 60-foot rear setback. For a structure over 650, you would be 100 feet off any property line.
Yeah, so if you were to build something less than 650 square feet, you could do it. Something more than 650 square feet, you're talking about 3 or 4 times the size of that. doesn't fit. So they're all the, and then there's the issue of the architectural, how it fits architecturally. It needs to be complementary. In fact, the code says that architectural style and design are to be approved by the division manager of zoning or his designee, and are to be complementary to the primary structure. John, I'm going to put you on the spot. You're head of zoning. From what you've seen so far, would this be enough to convince you that it's complementary to the primary structure?
Not so far, Commissioner Gunther, but they did say that it wasn't going to be a metal building, so I'll need to see a better architectural plan.
Okay, so the point I want to make there is that as you progress down this path, if you do continue to progress down this path of building something in your backyard, there are a couple things you need to do. And I think you're kind of learning that right now, and that's good. You're going to need to check with the zoning department with the specific design and architectural feel and look of what you're going to build to make sure that it's okay before you get to the final step of being able to get that permit to build it. So that's one comment. Another comment is you made, you showed us a large number of properties, including two that are right on your street right there, including your neighbor to the south, the Gowans, who have structures that appear to be very close, large structures that appear to be very close to the property line. I know that in at least the Gowans case, I did the research on that, they got their building permit, which gave them permission to build all of what they have in their backyard there, 15, 16 years ago, in 2001, I think it was. And with the other one, I have a feeling they probably got a building permit for that as well. But that's not an issue today. What's at issue today is what you want to do on this property, and that's what the variance is all about. I would ask you, would you be willing to have us hold this for a month? I haven't made a motion yet, and I'm not sure if the board's going to agree with me, but if we were to hold this for a month, to give you an opportunity to work with all of your neighbors, because I know that you all want to live in a happy community. I'm sure you do. Would you be willing to spend the next month working with them to come up with a plan that is going to meet, that they're going to be comfortable with as your neighbors? Would you be willing to do that?
Of course, we're willing. I'm just not sure what those guidelines how that would work out, how that actually plays out, because
Well,
in determining a style and working with an architect and so forth, there's a certain amount of where does my freedom of choice begin and where does it end in terms of getting approval for a design from the neighborhood? Or I guess I'm unclear
Well,
what the guidelines would be.
Skip, let me jump in here a minute. On both sides, the request is not a very unusual request. We see these type of requests a lot on this board. I think the problem here is, I think your neighbors are a little stunned at this point to see you clear cut the property. Not that you don't have a right to do it. I mean, an R80 piece of property, you have the right to do it. But I think you're seeing a little reaction. What Mr. Gunther's trying to do is to give it, let's have a cooling off period, give you an opportunity to not only talk to your neighbors, but to get a landscape architect on what your future plannings can be, to get an architect to make sure the building that you're going to build, the garage building that you're going to build, is going to be suitable to match the house, for an example, and it's going to be suitable to the conditions in the neighborhood. So I think a 30-day period would be beneficial to you and beneficial to them, because as Mr. Gunther points out, you're all going to live in the same neighborhood forever and ever. So I think a 30-day period is going to be beneficial to you. So to answer your question, we're doing you a service, and we're trying to do the neighborhood a service by bringing everybody together. But on your part, I think a landscape architect needs to be brought in to decide on how you're going to replant the stuff and where you're going to put it, how you're going to block off the neighbors from your barn or shed in the future as the trees grow and things like that. And it gives them an opportunity to have a little say-so, a little thing back and forth. So I think that's where we are.
and I think in response, can you do what you want to do on your property? You can. as long as it meets code, that's all. And right now, it doesn't meet code, what you're proposing, and that's why you're asking for the variance. So my question is, would you, if you'd be willing to do it, and it sounds like you're nodding your heads that you'd be willing to spend some time working with the neighbors, you're gonna have to come up with a landscape plan anyway, so you might as well do it working with them. And you're gonna have to come up with an architectural plan for what this structure is going to look like that's more specific than what you have, and so you might as well do it working with your neighbors. Would a month be enough time to do this, or would you like to have 2 months or even longer?
Well, I mean,
Probably 2 months.
we are-
This
we are
time of year
facing
with
the
Christmas, we're
holidays.
going to be traveling.
That's
a
why I'm
lot,
asking.
so
Yeah.
2 months, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at this point, we're not in a rush due to weather. I've already put the project on hold for about another five months minimum anyway.
And I would suggest that if we approve a motion to continue to hold this for 2 months, if near the end of that 2-month period, you see you're still not quite there, you can request an extension of that for some additional time, as long as it doesn't go on forever. At some point, it's got to get resolved.
Right. yeah.
But we're gonna,
Well, yeah, absolutely. We want it to be resolved. We need to have the building built back there.
Right, I understand.
Just like numerous other people in our neighborhood already have their building. And like, I showed examples of some buildings that are not architecturally complementary
So,
to
and
the
your
houses.
neighbors are gonna be anxious to get landscaping put in too, I can assure you on that, based on what I've just heard.
Well,
So,
believe me,
okay.
so are we.
Yeah, okay, so I think we have a happy ending for the day, at this point, I'm gonna make a motion, we continue
I
this for
think
2
we're ready.
months.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, I make a motion, we continue case, application V118, for 2 months until the February,
13th.
February 13th, hearing of this board.
I would second that for discussion. And the discussion would be that they meet with the stipulations, they meet with their neighbors.
I'm assuming that they would do that,
But
otherwise
I think
it's
we
gonna be a
need
flat
to,
denial in 2 months,
But
I would
we-
expect.
But you won't be here.
Okay,
So,
that's right, yeah.
so we need to say that you need to meet with your neighbors, and y'all need to work out a landscape plan and an architectural drawing, rendering of your building during this 2 months that we're holding it, to be presented back to us in February.
That's
Okay.
reasonable. That's reasonable.
Yeah, I neglected to say that, and I should for the audience. Today is my last hearing on this board. I rotate off the end of this month, and so there would be somebody replacing me representing District 1, West Cobb, when you get into the February cycle.
All right, we've got a motion, got a second. Any other comments? Not hearing, call for the vote. We're going to approve that 5-0. I'm coming, Brian, get it? There we go. 5-0. Now, before we leave, Judy and Skip have given you orders. The neighbors got to understand that we're both going to be winners on that. They have a right to develop their property. They want to do it in cooperation with you, so let's work together. We have an attorney there. Make sure you all shake hands and talk to each other before you leave. Just by way of a comment for all us old folks in the world, Judy and I included, Harry Ingram's daughter got up here. For those of you that don't know, Harry Ingram was on the Board of Commissioners 150 years ago. He was also the gentleman that was responsible and is responsible for the Cobb County water system.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Harry Ingram and some of the other commissioners that we had in those days, we wouldn't have the great county that we have today.
Vision.
So in the sake of Christmas and everything, I wanted to get that across. You got us some pretty famous neighbors
Right, yes.
there. God bless. Leave.
Merry Christmas.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Okay, John, bring me into the world. What's my next one?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Variance case of V120, Chastain Point LLC, request a variance to increase the height of a wall from a maximum of 6 feet in the front or to the side of the building in a non-residential district to 18 feet and 8 feet in land lot 135 of the 20th district. The property is located at the northeast intersection of Duncan Road and Chastain Road. Is the applicant present? I'll let the record show the applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V120? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
All right, sir, if you would, please give us your name.
Michael Samples.
All right, Mr. Samples, will you tell us what you want? Tell us what you want on this application. What are you asking for?
I'm asking for a variance to get a screen wall. I think the normal height would be 6 to 8 feet, and I'm asking for 16, somewhere in that neighborhood, whatever it said.
Tell us why you're asking for it, though.
Because the building is on the corner of Chastain Road and Duncan. And it's nice brick and block, concrete, steel, conventional construction, office, warehouse, distribution center is what it's proposed to be. And the dock area is brick, like on 3 sides, concrete block on the back. And we have, asphalt paving in the front, concrete truck dock paving in the back of the building. And you can see the truck dock area from Chastain Road as you pass by. And we have a truck entrance off of Chastain Road. So what I wanted to do, we are heavily landscaping it, and this plan's been through the county. It's been approved, everything, building, construction, zoning, landscaping, arborist, everyone. But I'm just trying to enhance the property and build a screen wall that will be high enough to come to the top of the overhead doors. And it'll run along the west wall, right along Chastain Road, to the truck dock entrance driveway that comes in off of Chastain. So it's going to be brick, all brick wall, and it will screen the truck dock doors, the electrical transformer, stairs and landings, and a ramp, a drive-in ramp. It'll screen that from Chastain, and it'll all be much nicer.
Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, we're going to heavily landscape it in addition to that.
Anything else?
I can't think of it at this time.
Anybody here in opposition to case V 120? Hearing and not seeing anybody, it's back to this board for discussion. Ms. Williams represents that district, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Williams.
Hey,
Hey, how are you, Ms. Williams?
good, how you doing?
I'm fine.
We have talked on the telephone, and I went out yesterday and drove into where the existing buildings are, and noticed your building under construction there. So I parked in there, behind there, and you have infilled this piece of property a lot.
Ma'am?
You hauled in dirt and filled it up. this
Yes,
piece of property.
ma'am. Yes, it was a bad lot, and it wasn't wetlands, but it was bad. And I had to fill it in, clear the property, fill it in. It sat there for about 15 years.
Right,
It's a pretty small lot. It was right on the corner, and we built other buildings too. We try to build 50, 60,000 feet, So we had a chance and opportunity to do this. Lot was there, so we did it. So yes, ma'am, we filled in the lot, brought it up to grade. It'll be about level with Chastain Road right now.
and that was my concern when, because of the height of it, the height of the fence at 20 feet, that's a huge fence. And that's what you had required from, 18 feet, I guess, from 8 feet to 18 feet is the height, and that's really huge. I mean, I don't see anything else in Chastain that we have a wall that's 18 feet high.
Well,
And how would it look? I guess my concern is, how would it look? How is it going to, is it just going to be a freestanding wall?
well, it'll be freestanding. It'll be reinforced with, reinforcing bars, concrete, steel, that type thing. But can you put a picture of the elevation that you have? Can you get
In
that
the
on the
book,
screen?
there's a picture. If you could just, somebody hand,
I saw it in the book.
yeah, Leah's gonna hand it. And then you could explain the
V120.
elevation to us,
That's it.
yeah.
How thick is that wall going to be?
Sir,
How thick is that wall going to be?
it'll be 12 inches. It'll be 4-inch brick and 8-inch block. And the blocks are reinforced and filled with concrete. It'll have a brick
Okay.
roll-lock cap on the top of the wall. Let's see. This is the wall here. This is a screen wall. Here is the end of the building. This is glass here. This is all brick and block. This is brick and block. And of course, these other elevations, that's all glass and brick. Anyway, if you didn't, like, what we're hiding is this. Here, these truck dock doors, all here in the truck dock area and the ramp. And the screen wall, it's actually, if you get to the top of the height of the door, that will be the height of the screen wall. And it'll come straight across. And then you'll see building behind that. That's the building behind it that's above it. And what that does, it just screens the dock area. And so if you're riding along Chastain Road, then especially if you're going towards McCollum Airport, you're going to see the truck dock area every time. And we're just trying to, conceal that, just like I said, enhance it, make it look better, and it'll be more sightly. And of course, the driveway comes in here at the end of the wall.
And Mr. Samples, would you show me where you're planning on doing your landscaping? Where would the landscaping start?
Well, the landscaping is going to be all along the front of the property, down the side of the property, but it's going to take it, several years to grow.
Of course.
Several years. So we was just trying to, it's going to cost me extra money to do all this, but I thought it would be a much nicer building.
Okay. Thank you. You answered my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Did anyone have
No,
any
we're
questions?
ready. We're ready, Judy. I'm sorry, Brian.
Sorry about that. Yeah, Mr. Samples, just a couple quick questions. When you just took us through the renderings there, you were saying something about they're going to obscure the dock doors at the height of the dock door. Does that mean the dock door is going to be 18 feet high, or is that?
No, the dock doors are, well, first, from the concrete pavement in the dock area is 4 foot up to the dock door.
Okay.
And there's 4 dock doors and 1 drive-in door. The dock doors are 8 by 10, but the drive-in door is 12 by 14, 12 wide, 14 high, where you can get in the building. So that's why the wall would need to be high if it hides that door.
Got it.
That would be the reason.
All right. And is the elevation of the street kind of roughly at the same elevation as the foundation?
It's close. It's
Is it?
very
Okay.
close.
All right.
Back to you, Ms. Williams.
Okay, thank you. Well, having gone out and looked at it, parked out there, and now that you've explained it to me where I can understand the visibility part of it, and that was my major concern on Chastain, was the visibility of it. I think, is this building, it is leased out, is it, or is it not?
It's not leased.
It's
We're
not
building
leased.
it to lease it.
Okay,
I've had one person's interested in buying, and I told him I wasn't interested in selling right now. I'd rather get the building up, complete it,
okay,
and then you can see, because I didn't know if I was going to get the screen wall or not.
yeah,
And then also, as I told you over the phone, at the end of that screen wall, people could put it, if one person either bought the building or leased the building, they could possibly put a gate there, but that all have to be approved by the county.
right, okay, all right, thank you. Then I'm ready to make a motion.
Go.
I think that this could be a good thing by covering up the loading docks, which would be the essence of it. And I'm going to, for the clerk, I'm going to make this subject to the elevation plans that we have in the book. So that would be exhibit for V120, and it was dated October the 10th, 2018. And I'd make that part of the motion, and also the landscaping plan.
What would be part of it?
Your elevation plan. Your elevation plan.
A new
The
one?
one we just talked about, this elevation plan.
You want a new one of that?
No, I don't want a new one. I'm just gonna make it subject to this one.
Okay, yeah, it's gonna be exactly like that, and the brick will be, the same color. And we have, course, a red-brown colored brick with colored mortar.
Okay.
So, and all of that would be exactly the same. A lot of people probably might not even notice,
yeah.
it might look like an extension.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm gonna make that subject to it being brick and subject to the site plan, and that would be my motion.
Good. Good motion, got a second. No other comments, call for the vote. That's a 5-0 vote for approval. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank y'all.
Okay, John, where am I? Tuffy.
Variance case V122, Richard Haymore requested variance to reduce rear setback from required 30 feet to 10 feet in land lot 394 of the 16th district. The property is located on the southwest corner of Singing Post Lane and Nettle Lane. The applicant is present. Earlier, there are 2 people here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Anybody that's going to make a comment, please come forward. All right, sir, for the purpose of the record, when you're ready, give us your name.
Okay, I'm Richard Haymore.
Okay, Richard, tell us what you want.
So I am applying for a variance to reduce the rear setback or build line at our property at 3545 Nettle Lane from 30 feet to 10 feet. On the PowerPoint, you'll also see bullet point number 2, which was reduce the front build line from 35 feet to 25. Mr. Peterson has informed me that that build line is currently 25 feet, so I don't need to request that. So just a little bit of a background on who we are and what we're looking to do. So we are a family of 6. I have 4 children, aged 5. Boy, I'm nervous up here. I can't remember my kids' ages. Let's go the other direction. Okay, 13, 11, 8, and 5. They're all girls. And we're looking to build a house on this vacant property. We'd like to complete it before the school year begins. Next year, our oldest will be in high school. Our next oldest will be moving into middle school. And, you know, we're excited for the Great East Cobb schools. My wife volunteers in the schools. Boy, I'm shaking up here.
You're doing okay.
It's embarrassing.
Richard, you're
I'm
doing
glad,
fine.
I'm glad my boss isn't here looking at me. Yeah, so my wife, she stays at home, volunteers in the school. She's our youngest daughter's room mom. I grew up nearby off Murdoch Road. I graduated from Pope High School. I got my Eagle Scout Troop 400 in the area. I'm a statistician researcher downtown. We currently live in Canton, and if we can build a house on this property, it'll reduce my commute one way by 23 miles. So I should probably pick this up, huh? Okay. We're looking to build a traditional home that aligns with the neighborhoods. We do, you know, want it to be attractive and have some of the current features. The dimensions are roughly in line with the size of the homes in the neighborhood, and we are engaging with the HOA on the specific design and features of that home to make sure it aligns with the protective covenants. On the next slide, this is a little bit of a troubled property. So it was originally developed in the early 80s as a part of a Cotton Estates development, hedgerow. It was never built on. That was likely due to some very challenging topography. In fact, in the mid-90s, Cotton State stopped paying taxes on the property. It defaulted, was sold at a tax sale here in Cobb County. The subsequent owner who bought that deed at the tax sale also defaulted, you know, about 10 years later. We bought the property as a tax deed in 2016. We went through about a year and a half of legal work to clear title. So while it had been sold at a tax sale twice, neither time had it been foreclosed on. And so a lot of the neighbors, as we went in there and started meeting them, talking to them when we first bought the property, expressed to us an opinion that, hey, this is not a buildable lot because of the topography. But I think a big part of the problem was actually were the title issues. Made it that nothing could be done there. So we've resolved those title issues. We've procured clear title, and so we are now looking to begin building on the property. So, Mr. Homan, you look like you...
No.
Okay. All right, so just go to the next slide. Again, more specifics on what we're asking for. I guess this pointer thing. So I've listed here our understanding of the definitions of the build lines. You can see that what I've got rear in quotes, so that is the rear because it's a corner lot and the major front is the shorter side, and that's at the very top of the slide right there. And because this side is opposite of that, it has a 30-foot rear setback. Now, from a practical point of view, I'll show you a number of different images from this Cobb County GIS site that show that, in fact, positioning the home the way we would like to position it places it in line with a lot of, or almost all other corner lots in the neighborhood. And then that number 2 we can just ignore. If you'll go to the next slide, it's a very similar picture here. That blue line is essentially a creek that is concerning to us and to other neighbors. But our variance request stems from 2 challenging topographical features. Number 1, there's a very steep ridge, and I don't know that these topo lines do it justice. It's like a 30 to 45 foot, degree angle depending on where you're standing. Our goal is to get the house off of that big ridge, that big cliff, and do it in a way that aligns with the other homes in the neighborhood, but also makes it possible to build with reasonable construction costs. The other challenge is this creek that's pointed out here. It is a creek that flows throughout the year, and then when there are rains, it does flow pretty heavily. We've heard a couple of different concerns from the neighbors who are here. The neighbors to the west, they have expressed a very large concern about disturbing the creek, that anything we do could make more silt get into the creek, could make an existing problem worse. The neighbors to the south, they're concerned that the location of the home might not fit in or be aligned with the other homes in the neighborhood. So in the remaining time I have, do I have much time? Am I almost down?
4.5 minutes.
Oh, I got to go quick. Okay, next slide, we'll show you our proposed resolution for the water concern. So the purple line right there is where a current storm drain exists. You can see that arrow, that blue arrow, it kind of flows north. It's actually downhill, goes into an inlet off the street where the purple is, runs straight to the back of our property. At the very top of the hill, it lets out the water and it runs down the hill, runs into the creek along the property line. That creek crosses into the neighbors to the west yard and then crosses back into our yard at the very top where that red line is, into an inlet that goes under the street. So we've proposed a stormwater, and they seem to be on board with this idea. We would propose relocating the purple drain to that green location. By routing the water that way off the street, it avoids going into the neighbor's yard. It avoids running down that hill. It would just go straight into that inlet that runs underneath Singing Post Lane. You can see on the next page, here are just some pictures. The one on the left is where that inlet on our property lets out and then runs down the hill. You can see some of the erosion that's there today. You can see on the right, that is the pipe that goes underneath Singing Post Lane. It seems to be a long-term problem. You know, we bought this lot about 2 years ago. It's been vacant for about 30 years in this condition. The next concern is the positioning of the home on the property. So without approval of the variance, that red box is where the house would necessarily need to be positioned to stay outside of the setbacks for the creek. And you can see that a large portion of it is right there where the topography lines are very steep, right on that cliff. In order to build that house, it would require at some points a combination of subwalls and foundation walls of close to 30 feet. And so if we can position it where the blue line is, we can get it off of that ridge, and we can work with a 10-foot foundation wall, just a standard basement.
2 minutes left.
Okay. All right. One of the big concerns is, of course, how that house will sit. If we can go ahead one more. Let's just some more pictures. You can see, can we go have one more? So you can see our lot with the blue star. The blue line is where we're proposing the house be set. You can see with the red stars, lots of other corner lots in the neighborhood do sit, you know, in a similar fashion relative to the homes next to them. The red stars, I pulled some distances off of the GIS site. On this page right here, I think that's about 15 feet. I'm sorry, you guys can't see it, but it's the second star to the left. That sounds like Peter Pan. That second star to the left is at 15 feet. If you go to the next slide, one of the other things we are suggesting and would be happy to do is to build a landscape buffer between our house and the neighbor's house. Some sort of evergreen planting we would be happy to do. The next slide is just zoomed in on the neighbor's house to the south. This is the property line in question. The neighbor today has a 10-foot sideline. We're proposing that our sideline, with a 10-foot build line here, we would be just as far from the property line today as our neighbors are. So it would be in line. And then as you go through, there are a couple more slides, just illustrating again that within the neighborhood, it is a very common practice. The star all the way to the left, that's 10 feet from the build line. In fact, the house across the street, I don't know if you can see this, but there are actually two houses across the street and down the hill that also already face the direction we would like the house to face and have 10-foot side build lines. So I'll stop talking there.
You got 2
Thank you.
seconds.
No, I'm ready to be done. Thank you.
You couldn't remember the 4 daughters' name, but you got 2 seconds.
I can
left.
tell you their names. Yeah, it's, yeah. Thank you.
Very good, Richard. All right, at this time, we will hear from the opposition. Again, sir, if you would, give us your name, please.
Hi, my name is Darwin Belote. I am the son of the homeowner at 3525 Nettle Lane. This is the property that he was describing to the south. Okay. So my parents bought the house back in '82. They were one of the first purchasers of homes in Hedgerow 2. And we were told that this lot was probably unbuildable. And so I think Mr. Haymore's suggestion that it was unbuildable due to the title restrictions, that's not an issue. It was really the drainage issue that is our understanding. But we're opposed to what Mr. Haymore is proposing because I think that the setback is going to be make the subdivision it will look very odd because you've got 3 1980 style houses in a row with the same setback. They have a proper distance between each. And then what he's proposing is to have a house that is notably larger. The Nettle Lane house that my parents owned is about 2,500 square feet. And what he's proposing is quite a bit larger than that. Their house at Nettle Lane, my parents' house, is one of the biggest houses in the subdivision. So there's going to be a notable disparity in property size between this house that he's proposing and then having the house closer to the street as well as being extremely close to my parents' house.
Anything else you'd like to tell us, sir?
I think those are the main things that I wanted to
And for the record, this is your parents' house that you're speaking.
Correct.
Okay, sir.
Correct.
Anything else?
I think that's all I have.
If you would have a seat, we'll hear from the next opposition person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Stabile. I live at 4080 Singing Post Lane. My house is directly below where Mr. Haywood is asking for the permits.
And again, the arrow where the hand is, that's your house, sir, if you look up there. Sir, if you look right up there, is that your house? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. For the record, I wanted to get that on the record.
As Mr. Bloch just expressed to you, when we bought the house, we were the first owners. We've been there for 30-some years.
Okay.
We were also told at the time that that was an unbuildable lot because of the drainage and so on and so forth. From day one that we've been there, we've had issues with what everybody likes to call the creek. It was originally an artesian creek coming from a farm up on
Sandy Plains,
Maybury Road.
Maybury, okay.
But through the developments, it's actually been turned into a storm ditch. The water runs all the way from the beginning of Hedgerow 1. Last summer, the county put in new culverts on Hawfinch Lane, and they tripled the size of the piping. However, they never addressed the issue of the culvert that runs from my property, or just behind my property, under the street to the retention pond. I don't know if any of you remember Emmett Burton. He was a commissioner here many, many years ago. He came out and looked at the creek and had the builders start to build a seawall on my property. Over the course of the years, I have put about $25,000 into seawalls to try and keep my property from eroding. To give you an example of what kind of issues we're having now, this picture gives you an idea of the flow of the water from the drain that Mr. Haywood is asking to be moved. It's about 300 feet from the culvert, and it does its job as far as moving the water off of Nettle Lane, but it doesn't hit the culvert immediately. During the course of a good rain, this pools up just on the side of my property. That's about 5.5 to 6 feet deep. If a child happens to be playing on that hill, they're done. This is a look down the backside of my property, which shows you how much water comes through that. And like I say, that the culvert that runs under the Singing Post Lane is 3/4 filled with silt now. There was a development that was just approved 2 years ago on Nettle Lane that put an additional, I think, 10 or 15 houses up there. We were assured that there'd be a retention pond and that everything would be taken care of to prevent additional runoff. Didn't happen. The silt buildup from that development has continued to erode what I call now the drainage ditch. My big concern is if we move that drain to where it's being proposed, it's going to pool up because it's going to come out on flat land rather than coming down the hill. It's going to come directly into the culvert and cause that immediate backup, which is going to make more water come onto my property. If you look at, again, the topography, that's what that area looks like when there's not a whole lot of water in it. But again, my concern is the flooding, and there is a floodplain there. My property at one point was on that floodplain, and I had to have flood insurance in order to have the property insured. It subsequently, the corner of my property has been taken off that floodplain. But our biggest concern is the water. I mean, something has to be addressed, plus all the silt. The amount of trees that's going to have to come down is going to cause additional drainage problems and silt. When the culverts were put on Hawfinch, we had to call Mr. Corey from Watershed on a Sunday because there was no stabilization. There was no anything stopping the silt and the mud from flowing into the creek with the construction of those new culverts. So that's my concern. I appreciate your time.
Okay, sir. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
I just welcome Watershed to come out and take a look at
Okay.
the issues.
All right, sir, thank you. Is there anybody else? We have about 2 minutes left. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition to case V-122? Hearing and not seeing anybody, it's back to this board for discussion. Brian McDaniel represents that district, so I'm going to turn over to Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to follow up on the concerns about the stormwater management, if I could. Dave, would you mind coming up and helping us address some of the questions that were raised?
Yes, sir. Dave Braden with the Stormwater, excuse me, Stormwater Management Division.
So, Dave, you had a chance to get out to this property and look at this?
Yes, and I've actually been working with the engineer who actually has already designed the realignment of the drainage pipe through the property. In my opinion, that's why this property has been unbuildable over the period of time, because when the subdivision was built, they put the storm drain from the street, from the curb in the street, right smack through the middle of this lot, which makes it almost impossible to put a site of structure on it.
Yeah.
And
it seems to me like the current placement of that storm drain would lead to more silt feeding into the.
Well, it comes in almost at a 90-degree angle to the stream,
Yeah.
instead of more at an angle toward where the existing culvert is under Singing
But then it
Post.
runs down that hill.
Right.
So, but.
And the current, obviously, there's the larger stream that's coming from the southeast.
Yep, right.
Up there, but this lot basically drains east to west into the stream. But right now, the water from the street has to go through the pipe, into the creek, flow through Mr. Stabile's property before it even gets to the culvert. And now it'll be able to go directly to, stay on his property and flow directly to that culvert. So now I did see, I'm pretty sure that photo is fairly recent, right, of the culvert under Singing Post. That looks like a lot of sediment. So we will need to either, it might be DOT's pipe since it's just under the road, but between stormwater and DOT need to take a look and see if there's.
Yeah, that picture caught my attention too.
That's a lot of sediment. So somebody needs to take a look at that.
What do we need to do to make sure that happens?
Yeah.
This is a question to you.
I'll put in a service request.
We're going to put him on notice, and our DOT representative is shaking her head. She's put on notice. So I can assure you, neighbors, somebody will be looking at that.
Get a storm drain coordinator to go out and take a look at.
Yeah, that was a concern, but then back to the relocation of the drainage pipe, it looks to me like what has been proposed would actually help in the long run.
Stormwater's opinion, it would help reduce
But
the
I
amount
want
of
your
erosion.
opinion as the
Reduce the amount of
expert.
erosion from the site as well, and provide a more direct path to the existing culvert under Singing Post, which is a good thing.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions for Mr. Braden while he's here? Ms. Williams?
Dave, not really, I'm gonna show my age. Years ago, I thought we marked this lot out when this plat came as a unbuildable lot. Did we not do that? I could have swore we did.
The plat doesn't
because-
record it, the plat doesn't show it as an unbuildable lot.
I think we
It's
just talked
it's
about it
just-
because he couldn't get permits on it.
It's just, you would be hard for us to put a site of building on.
Because Fred Stillwell built
because of the
built
easement through
on
the middle of it.
everything.
Right.
And Emmett Burton talked an awful lot about a lot of things that never got done too, so.
Yeah, well, Fred
But-
was a big-time builder, Fred Stillwell.
Nobody wanted to spend, it at least appears to be, nobody wanted to spend the money to actually relocate that pipe, because they have to do it at their own
Yeah.
expense.
And it was a topo problem too, if I remember.
And it's a steep lot.
Okay.
All right, Brian
Thank
has
you.
another question.
No, I don't have another question. I just.
Well, let me, just to clarify the issue, from your professional engineering background, you feel that this plan is good for Mr. Haymore to build his house on, is that correct?
Yes, and based on the proposed plans that have been provided by the engineer for the pipe relocation.
And actually, it's going to help the neighbors that are having existing problems now.
Should help with erosion.
Should help,
Absolutely, yeah.
okay.
Pipe will have to be less steep and less angled.
And since we're on TV and we're talking to the whole world, the process is that as they go through building this house, you and all the different departments are overlooking and seeing where everything goes to make sure it complies with what we want it to comply with.
That's true. It will have to come through plan review.
There you
That's
go.
correct.
I want to get that on the record to give you a little peace of mind on what's going to take place in the future. Any other questions for Mr. Braden? Okay, Brian, it's back to you.
All right. I think I'm actually ready to make a motion.
Go.
Unless anybody else has some comments or questions about this thing. But as I've worked on this one and kind of looked at it from all sides, I understand the point about stuff being quote-unquote unbuildable. I've seen that all over Cobb, and yet I turn around and stuff is being built on places I wouldn't have imagined. And, you know, I will acknowledge this is a very unusual topography on this piece of property, but obviously, you know, they've done a lot of work in trying to figure out how to situate a home on it. And from what I understand too, they're going to do everything they can to avoid disturbing that property to the extent possible. They want to preserve all the trees that they can. And they're willing to put in landscaping, as Mr. Haymore mentioned, to ensure privacy and a buffer on that south property line. And then this last piece about diverting the runoff. So I think they're doing everything that they can to really address the concerns that have been raised by the neighbors on a very, again, highly unusual kind of topography on this lot. So that being said, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve V-122.
Got a motion? I
I'll
have
second.
Second. No other comments? Call for the vote. All in favor or opposed, just signify. We're going to approve that case with a 5-0 vote. All right, John, where am I now? Do I have anything else?
The last thing on your agenda, Mr. Chairman, is to approve the other business item to adopt your dates for next year's hearing.
Everybody's had an opportunity to look at the calendar for next year, John. Is that what we're talking about?
That's correct.
And is there any deletions, directions? I'll entertain a motion on that then. 2019. Second, Mr. Bryan, all in favor signify by voting. Okay, that's a 5-0 vote, Madam Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not my pleasure, but I need to announce that this is the last meeting for Mr. Skip Gunther, Dr. Skip Gunther, who has been an exceptional comrade of all of ours for the last number of years. Skip always comes prepared. He is thoughtful, and he's courteous, and that says a lot for this group of people. And Skip, we want to wish you the best of luck in all your new endeavors in the future, and looking forward to seeing you come back and say hello all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, we also need to you want to make comments?
I don't want to make a speech. I just want to say it's been an honor to serve on this board. And we haven't had any fights, just for the record. And I want to thank you for saying what you said. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. We don't fight in public, but we sure
behind
raise
closed
hell
doors,
in the background when there's no
No cameras.
where there's no cameras and no recorders. We have to approve the minutes from December the 10th and also the November the 26th. I'll entertain a motion on that.
Let him make his final motion.
Final motion.
My final motion, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the minutes as presented for November 26th and December 10th.
Okay, that's the motion. All those vote one way or the other. Second, Ms. Williams, that's right, we're catching ahead of ourselves. Okay, that's a 5-0 vote. Now, it's the holiday season. Let us all welcome each other to the holiday season, and I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you again with this famous Board of Zoning Appeal show coming in January. All new stunning acts to perform. Thank you and God bless.
Just one new cat.